Brittney Griner thought she could just slide by after making those controversial remarks about Caitlin Clark. But Indiana Governor Braun just dropped a political nuke that's got the entire WNBA in damage control mode. The league investigated bogus allegations against Fever fans, yet turned a blind eye to legit backlash over Griner's viral video.
Fan base of being racist. They investigated it. They said those accusations were false. The least that she could do is apologize to our great state and the fans that show up at these games and say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Obviously, she's not going to do that. But also, Dan, why isn't the Indiana Fever apologizing to their own fan base for putting them through that, for going through those types of accusations? I mean, those are awful accusations.
And now, the pressure's rising fast, and some serious fallout is on the horizon. Do you think the WNBA's selective investigations reveal an obvious bias against Caitlin Clark and her supporters? Because let's be real. Suddenly, the WNBA's feeling the heat, and it's not from the court lights. Once someone with real authority steps in and questions their absurd double standards, the whole house of cards starts to wobble. Griner figured she could coast like always, hiding behind the league's protective bubble, the same one that shelters certain stars no matter what they say or do. But
Griner today, we came across this morning, 9-year sentence in Russia. The discussion is with this that they put 9 years on it as another negotiating tactic of sorts. But still, I mean, for what she was detained for at the airport to what this ended up being.
Governor Braun just smashed that illusion wide open, and the chaos that's coming. Yeah, it's going to be wild. So let's unpack this mess, because it's deeper than a 3-tier wedding cake and somehow twice as dramatic. Griner accused Indiana Fever fans of racism. The league launched an investigation and concluded those claims were totally unfounded. At the very least, she owes an apology to the fans, to the
one trade. Yeah, America would get Brittney Griner and this. So I look at it and think it may not be the worst trade if this guy was actually an American spy that they're sending back. If he's some dude that was in Moscow on vacation that used to be in the Marines that they suspected of being a spy, and he's just a civilian.
To the people who pack those arenas and show love every game.
Worse that he's over there in this situation.
She should be standing up and saying, I was wrong, I'm sorry. But of course, that's not happening. And let's not ignore the team's silence either. Why hasn't the Fever organization spoken up for their own fans? These are heavy accusations, completely baseless, and yet no one's stepping forward to set the record.
We don't know what she's mouthing, but she seems to, have a mouth on her and not exactly be in the gratitude space. Griner herself hasn't commented. Now, why is that? If you were being accused of making racist statements, I think you'd want to clear that up quickly. You'd race to the cameras and put out a statement on X to say, I said fucking whack call. I didn't say effing white girl.
Straight or apologize. It's unacceptable. The fans didn't shout racial slurs at Angel Reese or anyone else. That's just a fact backed by the league's own findings. Where's Caitlin Clark? Where's the Fever? Where's the WNBA publicly acknowledging the investigation turned up nothing? Where's the moment of accountability? Nowhere. And that silence? It hits hard, especially for people like me, whose daughters are loyal fans. They go to games to see Caitlin, to support the team, and then have to endure this kind of smear? It's insulting to our state and our community. The WNBA poured time and money into chasing down made-up stories about Fever fans supposedly harassing Reese, all after the Sky got obliterated by 30 points. The accusations were so flimsy that even the league had to admit they didn't hold water. But here's the kicker. While they were quick to launch an investigation into fictional hate, they completely ignored a viral video of Brittney Griner that millions believe shows her calling Caitlin Clark trash and a fucking white girl. Everyone deserves to feel safe in these arenas. Everyone should be able to show up, sit down, and enjoy the game without feeling targeted or excluded. Griner herself said she'd speak out against legislation that marginalizes people. So where's that same energy when she is the one under scrutiny? The hypocrisy is staggering. The WNBA will jump into action over phantom racism, but suddenly develops selective blindness when there's actual video evidence involving one of their favorites. It's like they've got built-in filters for what kind of discrimination they're willing to acknowledge.
Amazing. I mean, last night was a time was had.
Okay.
A time was had.
Okay. I won't ask no questions. But
I'm not saying that. That's all I'm saying. But just being around all the All-Stars and Olympians and everybody, that's what makes it fun.
I'm old enough to remember when there used to be a dunk contest.
Mm-hmm.
I remember.
And it always seems to line up with their preferred narrative. Governor Braun wasn't having it. In the most measured tone, he put them on blast. If there was some look into what Angel Reese did, I think it would be good to put that to rest as well. That wasn't just a suggestion. That was a signal. He's letting the league know that their bias hasn't gone unnoticed. By people in positions of power, Caitlin, Clark and the Fever are arguably the best thing to ever happen to the WNBA. Every game she plays is a sellout. The atmosphere? Electric. It's not just good for Indiana, it's good for the entire league. And yet, somehow, the same fans who create that buzz are being accused of racism by an opposing player who clearly can't stand Clark. That rivalry? It's gold for the sport, but tossing out wild accusations with no basis? That's trash. The fans deserve better. The investigation debunked the claims, yet no one had the decency to apologize. That's the least the WNBA could have done. I wish the team had stood up more forcefully for the people who fill those seats and keep the franchise alive. Maybe they still will. I hope so. I even tweeted that Angel Reese should apologize, and the response was massive. But I'm not, holding my breath. The governor made it clear, he won't stand for bullying or prejudice. When someone crosses the line, it needs to be addressed. Plain and simple. But the WNBA only seems interested in calling out bad behavior when it fits a certain agenda. Now let's get into that viral video of Brittney Griner that's got everyone talking. The clip appears to show her calling Caitlin Clark trash and using a racial slur. Griner's defenders say she was actually talking about the ref's call, calling it trash and saying it was a fucking whack call. But if that's the case, why hasn't Griner come out to explain herself? Why hasn't the WNBA issued a single statement with context? The silence is louder than anything, and it speaks volumes about how this league operates. When Reese is supposedly targeted by invisible hate, the league reacts instantly. All hands on deck. But when Griner's caught on video saying something inflammatory, suddenly everyone's too busy to comment. This entire fiasco just shines a spotlight on the protected player, culture embedded in the WNBA. Some athletes are bulletproof, no matter what they say. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark can't blink without someone dissecting it. Every glance, every turnover, every moment is up for critique. But Griner can allegedly drop wild comments on camera, and the league acts like it never happened. And the timing? Couldn't be more suspicious. This all went down right after the Fever wrecked the Sky, without Caitlin Clark even on the court. The Sky got clowned so badly, they needed a distraction. And just like that, fake accusations against the Fever fans popped up, perfectly timed to flip the script and make Reese the victim, instead of just another player who got outplayed. But Governor Braun isn't falling for it. He sees what's really going on. Caitlin Clark isn't just a basketball player in Indiana. She's a movement. Her presence has electrified the state's hoops culture, packing out Gainbridge Fieldhouse just like the Pacers, and reigniting passion for the sport from high, school gyms to college arenas. But this goes deeper than basketball. It's about standing up for an athlete who's brought record-breaking attention and economic value to Indiana. So when the governor speaks out, saying he hopes the hate against Clark ends and calls for fair treatment across the board, it tells you exactly what's really at stake here. The WNBA has let a toxic atmosphere fester, one where trashing Caitlin, Clark is not only tolerated, it's almost applauded. Meanwhile, standing up for her or her supporters. Suddenly, you're the problem. Senator Jim Banks has already called on the league to apologize to Fever fans over their phony investigation. And now Governor Braun is essentially echoing that sentiment, pushing for balanced treatment of valid concerns. These aren't random political figures chasing clout. These are Indiana officials who fully understand the cultural and financial weight Clark carries. The fact that politicians are even stepping into this mess should be a glaring alarm for the WNBA. When your bias is so blatant that government leaders feel compelled to get involved, you've crossed a line that's not so easy to walk back from. This isn't partisan drama. It's about basic fairness and enforcing the league's own rules equally. And you better believe Brittney Griner is watching all this unfold with disbelief. She's used to being shielded by the WNBA, protected from any meaningful consequences thanks to her story and her status in the league's hierarchy. But now, she's staring down the very real possibility of outside accountability from people who don't play into the W's internal politics. The difference in how this situation is being handled versus anything involving Clark is so dramatic, it borders on absurd. Clark takes a hard foul and the media wonders if she somehow had it coming. Someone allegedly throws shade at her, and the league stays silent. But if bogus claims get made about her fan base, suddenly the WNBA turns into a full-blown investigative unit. The probe Governor Braun is calling for might just tear open Pandora's box, because once real evidence starts getting reviewed and equal standards are applied, the league is going to have to confront some ugly truths. For years, the WNBA has operated under a system that shields certain players while allowing others to be openly targeted. That setup is now under serious threat from forces outside its control. And the worst part of this entire controversy isn't even what Griner did or didn't say. It's the exposure of how deeply rigged the league's so-called investigations have become. They'll chase down fake allegations about fans, but ignore actual player misconduct. They'll scramble to defend a select few while letting others take hit after hit. Governor Braun stepping in underscores something the WNBA has desperately tried to downplay. Caitlin Clark is bigger than their league. She brings a level of attention, revenue, and legitimacy the WNBA has never seen before. When state leaders start speaking up for her and calling out obvious bias, it's proof that Clark's influence stretches far beyond the court. And this couldn't come at a worse time for Griner. Already juggling multiple controversies, she's now facing the very real threat of consequences. The protective bubble around her might finally be popping. And that has to be terrifying for someone so used to special treatment. What makes this even wilder is that Griner can't play her usual victim narrative here. This isn't about her past, her struggles, or her background. It's about the possibility that she made inflammatory remarks about another player, and there's actual footage. She can't spin this into an attack on her character or pretend she's being unfairly targeted. The WNBA is now boxed in. If they ignore the Griner situation, the political pressure keeps building. But if they investigate, they're basically admitting that their earlier silence was biased and wrong. Either way, it's a bad look. And honestly, it's one they earned. Governor Braun's comments about embracing Clark's value instead of undermining her make the absurdity of this entire situation crystal clear. Clark has elevated the WNBA more than any player in history. And yet, it seems like certain players and officials are hell-bent on discrediting her. The fact that this has pulled in public officials proves it's no longer just a sports debate. It's spilling into real-world impact, and the league can't just bury this like it's business as usual. Not this time. When governors and senators start putting out official statements, you know the issue's reached a boiling point. This whole mess also exposes how hollow the WNBA's social justice branding really is. They preach fairness and equality nonstop. But when push comes to shove, those values only seem to apply when it benefits certain players. True fairness would mean investigating every claim, not just the convenient ones. The probe Braun is demanding could unravel years of selective enforcement and favoritism within the league. Once you start pulling that thread, there's no telling how much biased decision-making will come undone. The WNBA has played favorites for so long, they may not even realize how obvious it's become. And Griner? Her shock might be real, because she's never actually faced this kind of heat. The league has insulated her from nearly every scandal and criticism, so the idea that she might finally be held accountable, that's probably brand new territory for her. Braun's intervention also sends a loud message to other politicians. This matters to voters. Caitlin Clark has a massive national fan base, and those fans show up at the polls. When lawmakers start backing her and taking aim at league favoritism, other elected officials are bound to pay attention. This controversy lays bare exactly why the WNBA struggles with public trust. When your so-called investigations are so clearly biased that political leaders feel they have to step in, you've lost any claim to integrity. The league sacrificed its credibility by protecting some players at all costs, and now the bill is coming due. The most satisfying part of all this is watching the WNBA's carefully crafted narrative unravel in real time. They spent so long downplaying Clark's influence while boosting others that they built a system too shaky to last. And now it's crumbling. Governor Braun's remarks about Indiana being the basketball capital and Clark being in the right place make it clear. This goes way beyond just the league. There are cultural and financial stakes for the entire state. If you target the player who's brought historic attention and money to Indiana, don't be shocked when Indiana's leadership pushes back. The WNBA's house of cards is teetering, and Brittney Griner is about to find out what real accountability looks like. Governor Braun just flipped the whole game. Equal treatment for all players is now on the table. What happens when the investigation actually starts? Drop your takes below, hit that like button, and subscribe for more WNBA drama you won't find on the league's highlight reel.